Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 252 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. There's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight is an ACP roundtable. Of course, starting off is we have the usual Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
The usual. You make me sound so mundane.
You are the regular hostess. You're
the OG.
You're an integral part of the show, Erin. Don't downplay it.
How about we go with ubiquitous?
It sounds a little too close to you, bitch.
I see no problem.
Okay.
How are you doing, Erin?
Jeez. June is gonna be a long freaking month, and it's not even June yet. We've already gotten the usual virtue signalers who are like, pride bad, gay bad, trans bad, and it's just, okay, if that's how you feel, that's fine, but you don't have to be a Pharisee and announce it to everyone, okay? And I just know I'm gonna get this all week. It feels like it's gonna be March Part 2. Grumble, grumble, moan, moan, move on.
Fair enough. Also joining us, we have David.
Hello.
And how are you doing, David?
Right now, warm because I was doing laundry right before I hopped on the chat.
Okay. Well, hopefully
it's been a domestic day, dishes and laundry.
We were just talking about just before the blooper. We were talking about Detox Mansion by Ward Zevon, and one of the lines, "I'm doing my own laundry and I'm getting those clothes clean."
Yeah, it's right up there with clean your room and make your bed.
Correct. And Oddball?
Hey, I'd just like to make a public service announcement that if you are on the freeway and in the left lane, if you are not passing someone and it is safe for you to get over to the right lane, do so. And if there is a bunch of people behind you and you can't, well, figure out how to make a hole.
What is seriously wrong with those people? Like, I will be in traffic where I will move over to the left lane to be passing somebody, and I am passing them slowly because I don't feel like passing them at an unsafe speed, or
right.
I'm bunched up against somebody up ahead of me and I don't want to be tailgating them, and all of that, and cars will be piling up behind me, and I will feel like, oh God, no, I don't want to be holding you people up. Come on, let's try to get over. Let's try to get over, and maybe I'll even exceed the posted speed limit. saying as if saying as if he's not already exceeded, but maybe exceeding the posted speed limit in double digit numbers. To get by and over, faster, so that I can let the people who want to go fast go fast. Because just get out of the way.
Yeah.
It's not your road.
It's everybody's road.
And actually, in a number of states, it is actually your legal obligation to get out of the way. It's never enforced, but it's on the books.
That's a tough one. I also got to wonder in several states around here, it's against the law to be in the rightmost lane if you see an emergency vehicle in the shoulder.
Yeah.
That's definitely the law in Florida.
Yeah.
A lot of states have had those for a while,
law.
And a number of them, after some pretty horrific incidents, added them to their books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insanely common. I think I've talked about it like a bunch of times in the Weird Audio Fisks on how oftentimes people will talk about like police officers, and it's like 80 or 90% of all police officer deaths are vehicle related. And at least I haven't seen anyone who's actually broken down that statistic, but given all of the body cam footage and dash cam footage that I have seen, where the police officer comes out of the vehicle and a drunk or someone who's just not paying attention, or actually I just recently saw one where a person was having a medical emergency, just plows into either the officer or into the vehicles, and the officer's just out there all willy-nilly, and that's not a good place to be when there's a car accident.
Yep.
That's why a lot of officers will approach from the passenger side.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that necessarily helps, but it's something.
I've seen dash cams where an officer had someone pulled over and both of them were off to the side of the road and in the grass, and here comes someone plowing through and taking out both vehicles, and the cop just said, and that's why we're over here.
Yep. Yep.
Also, another, I have mentioned this before. I tell everybody the procedure that I do when I'm pulled over, and I'd say you should do this too. Just because you're not carrying a gun doesn't mean you shouldn't take a traffic stop the same way as someone who does. Where put on the dome light, don't be reaching for anything when the police officer approaches the vehicle, and have your hands on at 10 and 2 on the wheel, and your window down when they get to you, and that automatically puts them at ease.
Nothing puts them at ease. It just makes them perceive you as less of a threat.
It helps. It also helps eliminate the chances of a search happy officer deciding, oh, you were rummaging around in your glove compartment because you were trying to hide narcotics or something.
Yep.
But another thing that works out well is if you see those lights come on and there's a parking lot anywhere near you on that side of the road,
pull into the parking lot. Yep.
Pull into the parking lot with plenty of space all around the vehicle, and let the officer know, I think this was a safer spot, a safer space, safer place to pull over, because it is.
One thing that I do, and I have done that when I had a police officer behind me and the road was not safe. What I do is I immediately put on the hazard lights so that he knows, yes, I see you, and I am complying. I'm just not going to stop here. I mean, that may not work for everyone, but my worry is that, is he think I'm not going to stop? Is he think I'm trying to get away, admittedly at a ludicrously slow speed? But, to my mind...
Worked for OJ.
Every time I've done it, I've always just immediately put on my my right hand indicator, just letting him know that I am looking for a place to pull over on the right.
Yeah, that'll work too.
Yep, but you're 100% correct, Erin. Any sort of signal that again conveys I see that.
Just because I'm not immediately pulling over doesn't mean I'm not complying.
And honestly speaking, the four ways are probably actually even better, because you could just be so drunk out of your mind that you're just looking for that right hand turn to pull over to head towards your house, and you just don't even realize that there's blue lights flashing.
Yeah, trying to think. I think except for once, I've only ever been pulled over on the highway, which has its own challenges. But it's been so long since I've been pulled over.
Yeah, I've
the
like
one time
90% of my traffic stops have been on the highway.
Yep.
But the last time I had it done was when my daughter was small, and the chaos of having a small child, I forgot to get my vehicle inspected, and the police officer saw the wrong colored inspection sticker and pulled me over. And it just so happened to be that I was driving past a gas station, and so I just pulled into that parking lot. And again, hands at 10 and 2 and all that. And I'm trying to remember if he even checked my license. I think he might have just walked up to me, saw me and the family sitting in the car, and I said, he goes, "You know why I stopped you?" I said, "I have no idea." And he says, "Your inspection sticker." And I looked over and went, "Oh." He goes, "Yep, no, you're 2 months past." And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I completely lost track of time." And he said, "Just get it fixed. And,
get her done."
Yep. And just let me go. And that was the end of it. And I'm like, I wonder if this helped.
Nice.
Well, the last time that I got pulled over was shortly after we moved to Tennessee, and my wife was going to the airport to pick her up. And I was pulled over for the same reason that friend with common name was pulled over in Oak Ridge.
Having too many machine guns?
Sadly, no. I had been sitting in the cell phone lot, which was very well lit, pulled around in front of the airport, which was very well lit, took the exit out of the airport onto the main road, which was very well lit. And when I'd pulled in, it wasn't dark enough for headlights. So I just had my driving lights on, not the headlights. And so the guy comes over and it's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, officer. I didn't realize it." And he just gave me a warning.
Oh, and
prior to that, the last time I got pulled over was on the New York State Thruway.
oh, and an addendum to my PSA: if there is someone very close to you and you're on a two-way road, and you get to a straight spot where the center lines say they can pass you, if they start passing you, do not start speeding up and straying into the other lane.
No.
I had someone do that to me this weekend.
Yeah. These people are jerks.
If in that situation, if someone starts trying to pass you, the best thing for you to do is slow down a little bit.
Or even just maintain the same speed at worst.
Really, the best is just let off the gas and slow down a little bit so they can get around you, and they're gone, and you can go about your day.
Yep.
Let's get down to brass tacks here. This is 2023. I'm betting 90% of all the people in the sound of my voice. There's people like Adam who drive positively ancient cars, but most of us have cruise control.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty much.
And if the car is less than like 6 years old, that cruise control is going to adjust based on the car in front of you.
I mean, that is true. I my wife's car does that, and it's nice. Mine does not.
Mine does not. My wife's does.
But yeah, so yeah, if you've got cruise control, you figure out the speed that you want to go on, get up to that speed, and set the cruise control. Because that's another thing that bugs me is the getting behind a car that's going the speed you want to go or faster, and then they slow down, or trying to go past someone who's going slow, and then they speed up,
or getting stuck behind someone who cannot maintain a constant speed.
Exactly. That's what, they're going up 5 miles an hour, they're going down 10 miles an hour, and they're just yo-yoing. It's obnoxious. Don't do it. If you are cruising, set the cruise.
Anyway.
Yes. So shall we got a whole bunch of news stories to talk about.
We do.
We do.
So the first one, honestly, Oddball, you've been talking about, I think you've been following this closer than all of this, but
yeah.
But I've been trying to follow it, but there's legal stuff that I just don't have the background for.
Yeah, but the article we've got here is from the Reload. Hi Steven. If you're not a member, give it a thought. He's a good guy. He does good things. Mm-hmm. But Fifth Circuit panel says pistol brace.
Did you say the Fifth Cervix Court?
Yes, I did. The Fifth Cervix Court is
you should go
dilated.
Deeper on that.
It's dilated, and it says the pistol brace ban block extends to gun groups members and gun companies customers.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, the gun company is Maxim Defense, and the gun group that I'm assuming that this article is talking about, because there are actually two cases in the Fifth Circuit about this issue. But the gun group that is having the most success right now is FPC.
Yes.
And they're both on the same case. There is another case in the Fifth Circuit involving the GOA, I believe. But yes, the judge that is currently handling the Maxim Defense and FPC lawsuit has clarified his earlier order for the preliminary injunction.
Yep.
Blocking the arm brace rule from going into effect. He first said, well, it will cover maximum defense and FPC, and he's since clarified that, and it will also cover maximum defense's customers and any member or family member of a member of FPC.
Right.
So here's
Now,
a very important question. When it says member of FPC, does it mean any member at any time, or does it mean people who were only members at the time the decision was made? Because I'm wondering if people could join now after that decision has been made and obtain relief.
The reading that I've seen several people say, I haven't read the actual order myself, but I've seen multiple people say that it includes all current members, which includes, oh, hey, you just heard about this? Join the FPC and it'll cover you too.
Excellent.
Now, the big question, as Mark at Four Boxes Diner was talking about yesterday, I think, and if you want to know about Second Amendment legal stuff going on, I highly recommend you follow Four Boxes Diner on YouTube. That guy is incredibly smart and is an actual lawyer. In fact, is a lawyer who has written briefs for the Supreme Court. And his statement is, you are actually probably, if you're in one of the states that is in the Fifth Circuit, you are probably safe whether you are a member or customer or not, because the agency is going to be highly reluctant to go after somebody with a law that is already having at least one judge saying, yeah, this is probably unconstitutional. And if you are a member of the FBC and not in under the Fifth Circuit, you're probably safe there too. It is questionable whether, if you're not a member of FBC or a customer of Maximum Defense, whether it protects you or not, because on one hand, the announcement, the judge's order doesn't explicitly include you. In fact, explicitly doesn't include you, but also go back to my statement of an agency is probably not going to go after someone over a law that a judge is already saying, yeah, I highly doubt this is constitutional, and I'm probably going to rule this unconstitutional and throw it out. So it'll be interesting to watch.
On a related note to that, I tossed a link in chat. It's from the Twitter feed of Costas Moros, who we've often referenced in the past. And he is making fun of somebody who tweeted, so only your members are covered under the injunction? Gee, good looking out, assholes. Seems to me... Oh, I should probably read this in the sarcasm font. So only your members are covered under the injunction? Gee, good looking out, assholes. Seems to me you just made a play to stuff your coffers and basically force everyone to either join or be a felon. Sounds like the same thing the ATF did. To which Kostas commented, haha, yeah, gun rights groups totally can dictate to appellate courts the exact wording of their rulings and injunctions.
Right. And also this is, haha, you clearly don't know how the judicial system works.
Yep. And one of the replies to Kostas's tweet is the FPC with a link to the conclusion.
In a somewhat related note that I wanted to bring up for a bit is the fisheries being forced to pay for the observers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And In a way, if you squint at it in a perhaps sovereign citizen sort of way,
Oh
I
dear.
wonder if that's a violation of the Third Amendment.
Depends on whether there was fringe on the flag.
Well, it is on a boat.
Yes, it is a private naval vessel.
I mean, that would be an interesting challenge, though, to challenge that law based upon the quartering of, well, it wouldn't exactly be a soldier, but would be an employee of the government. So
It would be very interesting because
Yes.
I was a fisheries observer and I did work on herring boats, but at no point in time did I have a government pay grade. I was working for a private corporation that was gathering the data and then selling the data to the government.
Yeah, I mean, and also the Third Amendment, the wording is very specifically, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered at any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So,
There are
soldier and
beds.
house.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, that's why it would be an interesting challenge, because by the letter of the law, it's not an infringement, but
Exactly.
it's not a reach when you read into the spirit, especially when you find some of the emanations and penumbras that the Supreme Court has pulled out of its ass in the past. This is not a
Right.
stretch at all.
Right, because by house, are they talking specifically about the structure on land or residence, which can encompass boat?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the interesting aspects there, and that could be a fun one to kind of war game with some lawyers.
And by the way,
quick, call Ben Blatt.
that new voice that you heard was the lovely Xander Opal. Hi, Xander.
Hello, you are also hearing my air conditioning.
Yes. Well, I'm
Hello,
hoping I'll fix that in post, but we will see. If you hear something that sounds like an air conditioning, that's because it's an air conditioner.
So sometimes Weer'd uses an earth mover to scrub the stupid off.
Hello, Xander. Hello, Xander's air conditioner.
Yeah, I was hoping you would chime in. Of course, Xander's working on the dairy farm, so he has very early mornings, so he likely will not be staying with us for the entirety. But I'm glad you're able to join us right now, Xander.
Oh, thank you. Side note, just over 12 hours on the clock, plus 40-minute drive each way.
Yep, been there, done that.
Farm work. Hey, Weer'd. Would
Yes.
it help if we all had like a 10-second silence where Xander just played just turned on his mic and played the air conditioner?
I think I could grab it enough, so that'll be just fine.
Okay.
Just a suggestion.
All right. Well, yeah. It's either way. To put a bow on that, is anything else anybody's got to say on this one?
Just wondering how this is going to play out going forward. If any other districts are dealing with cases that they might take this as a good step, or like the second, for example, saying no, you're wrong, and then we have a clear circuit split again.
Yeah, but
That's just wondering for the future.
Yep. I mean, there's certainly, and that's certainly one point to say is that, again, I mean, it's kind of strange that this injunction only affects such a narrow group. I guess that's super duper common in court cases, that the court doesn't grant an injunction just to absolutely everybody, but it's one of those, well, why wouldn't you? The law applies to everybody. Why do just these plaintiffs? Why is it unconstitutional for just these plaintiffs?
Oh, you and your logic.
I know, but also, as dumb as that may be, again, remember, this is an injunction, not a ruling, and so we still have this case is still going forward, and this is just, again, the injunction that's saying, again, you have this interesting situation of when the ball drops, and it's June 1st, right? It's
actually 1 minute after midnight on March 31st. They moved it up a day.
I think you mean May.
Or May.
Okay.
It's going to be May.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's also a couple people have pointed out the highly interesting thing about what's the definition of customers of maximum defense? Is that previous customers that have already bought the stuff, or is that potential new customers? Because there is the issue that Maximum Defense is quite easily able to prove real damages that are kind of irreversible in the fact that while this law is in effect, they cannot sell those products.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that is interesting. Does the injunction still allow them to sell?
Mm-hmm.
So, but either way, that's the whole point. If you happen to have bought a braced pistol, and why wouldn't you have?
Money.
It's one of those.
Yeah. Money.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked in a previous, it may have been the mag dump that we were talking about that, but either way, we've talked previously about the bump stock, and again, bump stocks are range toys. The utility that they supply is very dubious in my mind. Doesn't mean I have anything against them. There's nothing wrong with having fun with guns. I've got loads of fun guns that are not practical in any way, shape, or form, but they are not practical in their nature and all of that. Meanwhile, pistol braces are absolutely practical.
Yeah. Like I said before, I was really hoping that someone would bring lawsuit against the pistol brace ban on the Americans with Disabilities Act's ground.
I mean, that
was its intended purpose when it was originally developed.
Yep, and actually, if you click over onto the Stephen Gutowski, or I assume it was Stephen, made the wise choice of for the cover title. It is Omar Avila, aka Crispy, who is a U.S. veteran who was hit by an IED in an ambush in Iraq, and it's been a while since I've heard his story. But look, if you have not heard his story on how he got to the condition that he is in now, it is absolutely harrowing. He ended up losing a leg. He's got a tremendous amounts of burns on his body. And throughout all of that, he was still maintaining the fight and fighting back. And I can't remember what decorations he got for that, but
enough.
This dude is a true American hero and a true disabled veteran. And the picture on the header of this article on the Reload is him sitting there with a braced AR pistol strapped to his forearm.
Yep.
So, that was the whole point, especially given the number of IED attacks, and also given the usage of tourniquets in the battlefield has led to a lot of soldiers that would have died on the battlefield coming home alive, but possibly losing limbs and with severe injuries.
Yep.
I'll note that the bump stock, while in and of itself not a huge thing of effectiveness, it was a very important function, which is a canary.
I mean, that's absolutely true.
Valid. Yeah, I mean, my opinion on bump stocks is pretty similar. My experience with bump stocks is a little bit different, since I think I am the only person on the podcast who has been injured by a bump stock.
I haven't heard this story.
No? Okay.
Do tell.
It was shortly after the gun shop and range where I work opened, and I was RSO.
Right.
And there was a no bump stock policy at that point because of concerns about control and liability. But there's this guy out there, he said, no one else is on the range. The manager gave him approval. He was trying to fix a bump stock that was not functioning properly. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, I'm going to give you the honor system going here. So I'm walking back and forth, and he fires away, and he gets it working. And suddenly there's this burst of shots, and I feel a sting on my arm. And I look down, and it looks like just a little thing on my arm. So I go to brush it off and realize it's not on my arm, it's in my arm. It was about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch piece of bullet jacket that was about half embedded in my forearm. And, he sees this, And he hears me call to the manager, like, "Hey, can someone relieve me? I caught a piece of bullet jacket. I just need to put a Band-Aid on it." And he packed up and left, because what happened was the first couple of shots went down range. The third and possibly fourth shot, hit the armor plate over the target clamp, and of course that bullet just blew up, and some of it came back, and I happened to be in the wrong place. So I am not personally positively disposed to bump stocks because I was injured by one, but politically there is nothing wrong with them, and the only reason the bump stock exists is because the NFA is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for the NFA, no one would have had to bother to invent the bump stock.
Yep. And if it wasn't for the NFA, nobody would be putting a pistol brace on their gun and not bothering to strap it to their forearm.
Right. Because the NFA is stupid.
And if it wasn't for if it wasn't for the handgun ban that never went through in the first place, we wouldn't have needed to define what was and wasn't a concealable weapon.
Right. And then there was the last minute add-on of suppressors for reasons.
I think it was that. Well, actually, no. I wasn't able to chase down that one specifically. The story that I've heard was because it was in the middle of the Great Depression. They were deeply concerned about people poaching.
Yeah, I've heard that. I have not been able to find any confirmation on that.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah, just like I've also heard that it was because the machine gun aspect was because of motor bandits.
Mm-hmm.
Which was also a 20s and early 30s thing.
Well, I'm deeply motivated by Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, and the Capone gang, and of which Capone,
Babyface Nelson.
Yeah,
I'm not Babyface. I'm George Nelson, and don't you forget it. Movie.
Yep. Is you is or is you ain't my constituency. But
for those in our audience who are not familiar, it's Brother, Where Art Thou? If you haven't seen it, you should.
Excellent. I love the Coen Brothers. But
great soundtrack too.
Oh, excellent.
I mean, I'm not a music person, and I will pull that soundtrack up on YouTube while doing stuff and just let it play.
Are we sure this isn't a mag dump? Because the Squirrel ADD is really, really strong tonight.
That is true.
She has a very good point.
So
okay, so back to the brace ban. You want you want to put a bow on it?
Yeah, let's.
I think so.
I think that was a pretty good bow. Do we want to move on to the next topic?
I think that was a chaos bow, but all right.
Yes. But,
so then,
this is your story, David.
Yes, this something that just came up in another unrelated topic, but this is from Chicago, the bastion of peace and brotherly love.
Mm-hmm.
And the headline is "No Bail for Chicago Peacekeeper Charged with Beating Robbing Man in Little Village." And this is from yesterday, act. So in Chicago, because of some of the crime issues, the city and state officials were praising the use of peacekeepers as a tool they would deploy over Memorial Day weekend to tamp down on violence across the city. These are non-law enforcement volunteers who would wear these reflective vests with peacekeeper on them and basically act almost like a neighborhood watch type thing. And then the trouble began because Chicago, apparently police saw a large group fighting, and additional Chicago Police Department units were sent in to break things up. And then one of the CPD surveillance officers reported a group of people had pulled someone from their car and were beating him on the sidewalk. And one of the people beating this driver was wearing a neon vest with peacekeeper on it.
Oh, even classier.
Yep. So apparently they pulled this guy from his car, punched him, and kicked him on the ground. The guy in the peacekeeper vest took the victim's phone and beat him with it.
Classy.
And someone else took their victim's wallet before everyone scattered as the Chicago police officers showed up there. But surveillance cameras recorded the entire attack, and the officers who reviewed the footage identified a man wearing a yellow vest as one of the attackers. Quickly searched the area and found this fellow, Oscar Montes, walking away, taking off the vest. He was removing a neon peacekeeper vest. And so they arrested him. The victim, by the way, was taken to the hospital with significant injuries, facial fracture, rib fracture, left eye injury that has caused partial vision loss.
Now, you haven't gotten to the best part yet.
Oh, I'm getting further down the article. There are a couple more points I want to make.
And by the way, that's best in quotation marks.
Yeah. So Oscar Montes, one of the attackers, complained of back and neck injuries and PTSD.
Wah, wah.
His defense attorney said that he has a 14-year-old child and is a certified emergency medical technician. He volunteers when he can and goes to church, blah, 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 blah. And here's, I think, what Erin might have been referencing. He's on parole for a 2012 case where he pled guilty to aggravated discharge of a firearm into an occupied vehicle.
Uh-huh.
And he served little more than 10 years of the 12-year sentence, being released just over a year ago.
So, of course he's a peacekeeper.
Yes.
And this is actually why you see this a lot. And this is one of those, I kind of hate that this is my, well,
there's one more little tidbit in here.
Okay. One more little tidbit.
So, as I said, on parole for the aggravated discharge of a firearm, those allegations stemmed from an incident involving a rival gang member of Montes, and he was originally charged with attempted murder but pled guilty to the lesser charge. So, attempted murder of a rival gang member. Now, unless you're in a gang, how do you have a rival gang member? So, he's in a gang, he shot at the other gang member, and went to prison on a 12-year sentence.
And this is where I always you'll see people that are concerned about inner city violence and all that, and so they start talking about solutions, and oftentimes we will hear people talking about gun control, but also you will hear people talking about these violence intervention programs, and part of me wants to give them all sorts of green lights because, yes, you're not going after guns and you're actually going after the violent people, and you are trying to solve some of the root causes of violence, which are absolutely the only way we're going to get any sort of success. But these peacekeeper programs, I am always extremely dubious about, because the nature of the program, they actually do seek out people who are members in the gangs or former members in the gangs, because they want people that have the street cred and are very clearly not cops, that they may have some disdain for. And so you have these people that are members of these communities that have a violent crime problem and are known on the streets to the people who would be causing the violent problems. And so just by nature, you're really stacking the deck in instance of these people, might be bad actors or have poor impulse control.
Well, in a statistically significant number of incidents, that's exactly what's happened.
And then furthermore,
the quote unquote peacekeepers have been the problem, not the solution.
And there's also a non-trivial number that have actually used it as I'm getting brownie points with the cops, so maybe they'll look the other way when they see me on a street corner, and that would normally think that they were dealing drugs, but maybe they're intervening in violence.
Yep. Or they go, the quote unquote peacekeeper or whatever goes in intentionally planning to do ill and use it for cover. Not just, they might give me a pass if that kind of thing happens, but I'm going to do this because they'll do whatever.
Yeah. So I hate treating these peacekeeper type programs and violence intervention specialists, et cetera, programs with the same way that I treat gun control, which is just no. Nope. Mm-hmm. It's a bad idea. It's a bad law. Nothing good's going to come of it. This is something that I think in theory could work, but it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, I am not against these programs in concept. I just don't think any of them have really been executed well. But I think the overall idea, having basically community liaisons between the community and the police is a good thing that's worked out well in other places. So it can work. It's just the vetting of those liaisons, I think, is something to be desired.
I think nice idea needs work on execution.
Exactly.
All right. Well, shall we move on to the next one? Anybody else got anything else on that one?
That's all I got to say on it.
Nope.
That's all I got to say about that. Yeah. So here's
biscuits and gravy.
Yeah. Here's another one that I believe we got. Yeah, I got through Costas Moros.
He is almost as good a resource as friend of the show with very common name.
Interestingly enough, I got this from friend of the show with very common name.
I'm surprised that you're not getting regular updates from Costas himself.
Yeah. Well, I don't go on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account. And,
neither do I. But Costas is one of the temptations to get a Twitter account.
I mean, it is pretty impressive, but this has gone through, and this all got started with Costas was reacting to David Hogg, where I guess he's gotten into trap shooting. He has posted a ton of videos of him at some sort of gun club shooting a very expensive over-under shotgun. I don't know if anybody knows their over-unders well enough to recognize it just on sight, but I recognize expensive. And
honestly, the majority of over-unders are going to be on the pricey side.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a majority.
And he's essentially doing this. I mean, he's a young kid, so he was not aware in the 90s, so he did not see the Elmer Fuds and see us learn our lesson and turn on them and realize that if you are tramping around, if you walk out with a bolt action rifle, and hunting, and hunting orange, or you go into a duck blind with a shotgun or all that, that doesn't mean you're a friend of the Second Amendment, because
in other words, he has no comprehension of the term zumboed.
Correct. Oh, very much so. Oh, I'd forgotten about Jim Zumbo.
Some of us never forget.
Yes.
We're like elephants.
But he
and that's not anything about my weight.
He keeps posting this going, look, I don't hate guns. Look, my family owns guns. I like to shoot guns. Yeah, you're shooting an over-under shotgun, and you're saying the guns that we own and the guns that we like to shoot are forfeit. But we'll go through.
But the ones that I have are pure and good and fine. So he's gone from being and well, I don't know if he ever was a pure anti-gun zealot, but at this point he's definitely become a FUD, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no such having guns and or shooting guns is definitely. Speaking of the queer community, you have things like Gold Star gay and Gold Star lesbians, or people who have never ever had a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. I wonder if the gun prohibitionist community has Gold Star gun banner on the. I've never owned a gun and never shot a gun in my life.
And never touched one and never will.
Yeah, but I mean, there are
I have seen that kind of gun prohibitionist virtue signal. I've never even touched a gun.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that there's more than that. Yeah,
but the higher up you go, the more you have as people who do own guns and all that, and either have, in the case of like Michael Bloomberg, does he actually own the guns, or does he just own the people that are coming with the gun?
Yeah. Where in the Caribbean is his home that when he goes there, he doubles the number of guns on the island?
Well, it's not Caribbean. It's Bermuda, which is it's still in the North Atlantic. But,
okay.
So yes,
he goes to Bermuda and doubles the armaments available on the island.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far because Bermuda does have their own army. They actually were issued AC 5.56s for a long time. I think they've replaced them with M4s, but that's a little fun little tidbit.
So they could actually have filmed the new A-Team there.
Correct. But the overall statement is that the Prime Minister of Bermuda does not have the level of security that Michael Bloomberg does when he's in country. And he has several dispensations from the government there to allow the amount and the types of guns that come in on his plane. So yeah, the owning and using guns as a gun prohibitionist is absolutely saying that I have guns and I shoot guns means absolutely nothing, just as the FUDs in the 90s told us and the FUDs today tell us, but also the anti-gun politicians who may in fact own guns and may in fact have things, but guess what? They've got through. I mean, for the longest time, Dianne Feinstein was one of the few people in the city of San Francisco.
Only.
It was only. Thank you.
Okay, I could be wrong. I wouldn't testify to this in court, but for something as informal as this, I have high confidence to say she was the only person in the city of San Francisco to have a concealed carry permit.
Yep. And Charles Schumer was one of the few in New York City that had an unrestricted carry permit.
I believe there's a term based on a name for people like that.
Hypocrite?
Quisling.
Yep. Vidkun Quisling.
But yes, so to get to the punchline is again, the David Hogg was talking about if you can't hit what you're aiming at in 10 rounds or less, either need glasses or more range time, and say you don't need high capacity magazines. Well, hey, guess what? What if there's more than one of them? If you want to suddenly say, oh, you get 10 rounds, that's okay. Of course, there's no logic in these statements. These are thoughts you said by other people that they repeat. And Costas report saying more range time. Okay, so you're going to oppose the many localities that try to zone shooting ranges out of existence. And so there's no public shooting range in the city of San Francisco. I would also add the city of Chicago, even though it was illegal at the time, is now not. But there still is no one has opened a range since it became legal there. But this gentleman, Elaine Steffens, came in, and he is interestingly enough, I just clicked over to his Twitter page, and there's a picture of him shooting an AR-15 as the splash page for his Twitter page.
Get to the point.
And but his statement is that my colleagues will kill, but he works for the Trace.
Thank you. That was the point I wanted you to make.
Thank you. He works for the Trace, and he says, my colleagues will kill me for this, but I do believe there has been a political move to discourage firearms by de facto bans on training areas. I think it fails to discourage ownership and instead builds pools of untrained users, which actually that might lead to the fact that he's got the pictures. This guy might be a shooter and may or may not be a full-on prohibitionist, or may be someone who believes in quote unquote common sense gun control and whatever that may be.
Yep. I do wonder with his comment, does he mean literally or socially his colleagues will kill him?
Well, I'm pretty sure he does.
I'm not making a joke.
I'm pretty sure he means socially / professionally.
Yeah, that's what I figure, but
I want to follow up on this because he actually did reply and said, by colleagues, I don't mean coworkers, I mean journalists in general.
Ooh, I actually I hadn't seen that, and I'm looking at it now. Wow, that is that is impressive. Mm-hmm. But that also goes into the statement that we have been talking about for a long time, which is one of the goals with the gun prohibitionist community is not just to take our guns away, and take away our ability to use guns, either through our ability to carry guns or our ability to keep guns in our home, but also the ability for us to, use them in self-defense. We have things like the Rittenhouse. Why was Kyle Rittenhouse charged with murder when it was so clearly documented? This, in a just world, people would have seen the videos and seen the rap sheets of the people that were in the morgue and went, this is very obviously self-defense. We're not charging him. But this is also done to anything that you can do to make the culture of owning firearms, the ability for people to give guns as gifts to family members and friends, the ability for people to go out shooting, the ability for people to go out hunting, the ability to people to enjoy firearms. The more you can make that difficult or a pain in the butt, the better it is, because you will have more and more people who are gold star gun prohibitionists who have never touched a firearm, because how could they? I don't have a permit and I don't feel like spending money just to touch a firearm.
Yeah. It's the standard. It's not enough to ban guns. They have to kill the culture.
Speaking of culture, there is another comment here, and I admit it is kind of tinfoil hatty, but it raises an interesting point for conversation, if nothing else. And this one person says, I believe that this is why there's such an effort to keep suppressors highly regulated, because noise ordinances are often used to shut down ranges. And so if suppressors become common, you could have suppressor-only ranges with little noise impact on the surrounding community. And, well, we can't have that.
I think you said the quiet... Whoops.
Okay,
sorry. Erin, I think you said the quiet part out loud.
Well, I'm just quoting this guy. I'm not sure if I 100% believe it, but I imagine that there are a lot of people who have thought of this. It's an interesting thing to ponder. I wouldn't be surprised if this were the case.
Yep. But I have seen the social attacks on people who are on the, one way or another, part of the anti-gun community in one level or another. And, well, I just went out shooting to see what this was about. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer one of us. Or you need to report for a struggle session.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
Naming, shaming, and blaming. It still happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've told stories about that with some of my friends before I left New York, who, yeah, I'd love to go shooting with you, but no one can know.
Yeah, but I think there's a huge factor in the suppressor. I don't. That would imply a lot of forethought, which seeing how gun control laws are rolled out, and that I'm finding myself not wanting to hang my hat on our opponents being ones that have a lot of forethought, but still, that is absolutely the case. I mean, my gun club is literally the oldest gun club in the country. I like telling people about it, is the fact that there used to be a 1,000-yard range at my gun club, and then Eisenhower built a highway across it.
So was John Adams a member of that club?
No, it doesn't go back that far.
Too bad.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to remember. There were a couple of prominent members, and I'm not going to go research it.
No.
Right on this. It's the Massachusetts Rifle Association, aka the Walnut Hill Gun Club, and yeah, it's an absolutely amazing club. I love it. I've shot at a ton of clubs all throughout Massachusetts, and all of them are great. But this is the only one that I've never thought about changing my membership or getting an additional membership.
Yeah.
But
to just step back for a moment, I looked up the armed forces of Bermuda. Bermuda no longer has armed forces. They have the Royal Bermuda Regiment, which is basically a glorified National Guard type thing. The regiment's current strength is approximately 350 personnel with a total training commitment of 30 days per year. The actual defense of the island falls to the British military.
Yeah.
But they are there are almost none stationed there. In fact, they closed almost all of the bases, and one of the remaining bases is actually used by the U.S. Navy.
I mean, and in fairness, the British know that if anybody decides to mess with Bermuda,
Things have gone really downhill.
well, one, yeah, things have gone really downhill, and two, that is close enough to our shores and will probably also endanger U.S. tourists, which tends to make which is one of those things that tends to make the U.S. get really angry and suddenly and explosively all over the place.
Yeah, but the last British, American, and Canadian bases were closed in 1995, and the formal return of baselands to the government of Bermuda occurred in 2002. So the only unit is the Royal Bermuda Regiment, an amalgam of the volunteer units formed in the 19th century Army and Naval Cadet Corps. So, and they're not all armed. So,
by the way,
yeah,
David,
so Bloomberg might not have, his people might not have more arms than the Royal Bermuda Regiment, but it might be a close thing some days.
Might be toe to toe. By the way, I just looked it up, and the person I knew that there was a significant person that we had talked about before.
So you looked up the thing you said you weren't going to look up?
Yes. Okay. It was Eugene Patridge was a member of the Massachusetts Rifle Association.
Patridge.
And if anyone is interested, I talk about him in one of my segments on iron sights.
Correct. Yep. That's the
guy.
Yep.
All right. So that Elaine Stevens, I hope he does not suffer any of the consequences he obviously fears for speaking the truth.
I mean, if I were him, I would be polishing up a resume.
Right? So that's all I've got to say on that. I don't have anything else to add.
That's...
Yeah, when Weer'd says, "I think I hear gunshots, be right back," that's not good.
Yeah, wow. So
I think we're going to pause the podcast for a moment.
Yeah, we'll let the recording go on, and hopefully Weer'd will come back and everything's fine. That is rather concerning. I mean, I hear gunshots all the time around me, but it's during daylight hours, and it's people shooting on their own property, and sometimes it's me.
Yeah, there's a difference between people shooting in the backyard in your not quite the boonies but close enough neighborhood, and Weer'd, who lives in a fairly urbanized part of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, he's in dense suburb, from
yeah.
what I gather. And I will say, I think that I do count as actual boonies, because not our next door neighbor, but the neighbor on the other side of them has cows.
Hmm.
And we do have coyote that run through our backyard.
Well, do you have a boonie hat?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then I'll allow it.
Very well, I'll allow it. What is that? One of the Hangover movies? Is that from?
Possibly. I didn't see that, but there was. I'll allow it is also from. I think it was Community.
Yeah, Community.
Oh, Community. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
And you're confused because the guy that was known for saying "I'll allow it" in Community was one of the stars of the Hangover movies.
Aha! So I'm not completely without merit to my thought process.
Remember, it's only a boonie hat if you're in the boonies. Otherwise, it's just sparkling headgear.
Correct. But what's interesting was, what were the gunshots?
Oh, I have no idea. Granted, I heard the majority of them. I heard the majority of them while I was talking with you, and I had my headphones on. But I took them off and realized the sound was going through, and I'm down here in the basement, so I have no idea. I looked all around. The coast was clear. Stuck my head out. Heard no signs of anything. Didn't smell anything. So
you played Meerkat and it's safe.
Yep, that's pretty much all I did. But it was one of those like that sounded like something going on, but I don't know what I heard. Oh,
and Erin, one last thing about my hat is apparently Law Dog has the exact same hat, and if he judges boonies, I will take his word.
Okay. I mean, I already declared it was a boonie hat.
Yep.
Not like
Well,
it's in
good boonie.
dispute or anything, but all right.
Yep. Of course, I was tried to get my wife to buy a hat recently, and I got her to try it on, but she refused to purchase.
Bucky.
We stopped at Bucky's. She refused to get the Bucky's hat. I think it's adorable.
So, but David, for that boonie hat, do you have a 3-pack of Lucky Strikes that you can tuck into it?
I don't smoke, not anymore.
I
And I never smoked Lucky's. There would be no point in having stale cigarettes.
But is
I'm
your
not going to
boonie hat
prison, I'm not trading
waterproof?
Water resistant.
What do you use? The spray?
I haven't retreated it since I bought it, but it came with a water resistant coating.
Okay.
I will have to retreat it sometime soon.
I am very fond of wax impregnated cotton, and I've got an article on that in Blue Collar Prepping. I treated my boonie hat with that years ago, and it's still doing fine, and it's repelling water like crazy. So really, all you need is a container of good meltable wax and like a heat gun, and I'm pretty sure you have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I do have a function heat gun anymore.
Can you use a
I
hair
could
dryer?
just borrow my wife's hairdryer. She'll never know.
I mean, that would probably work. It's just you might take longer in order to melt the wax. I really don't know the melting point of the wax, but a heat gun will definitely do it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I do know that with standard residential hairdryers that they're not designed to run for an extended period. And I just pulled up the waterproofing cotton article on Blue Collar Prepping.
And if you don't have a heat gun, I've actually gotten a considerable amount of use from the El Cheapo one I picked up at Harbor Freight.
I mean, we also have a fire pit. So.
Flammenwerfer.
I have a weed burner. It doesn't actually werf the flammen.
Well, then that's a heat gun.
Although, next time I see Mad Mike...
And anything is a heat gun if you're brave enough.
No, not that. No, that is not accurate. But anyway, now that you're back and reasonably safe,
yes,
shall we...
you could be in a state with heavy gun control.
West Morocco.
Yes, yeah. This story. I also got this from a friend of the show with a common name, and I gotta say it's a long one, and I mostly skimmed it, but it was also confirming something that I've forever thought about. Is I've heard about essentially what I always assume when you hear about ballistic fingerprinting. First up, like states like Maryland required ballistic fingerprinting of all firearms. So
New York.
New York did as well. And
New York did it longer. Maryland gave up, and then like 2 years later, New York dropped theirs.
And that's the punchline, is that they both don't do it anymore. But
they were the last two.
Yeah, many of you might have bought a gun in the last 20 years, and there had been a little envelope in the package that had a spent shell casing that was in there, and that was specifically to be submitted with the firearms serial number to their crime lab, and it turned out to be a worthless, overly expensive boondoggle, and eventually they gave up because, again, it made gun culture more of a pain in the butt. So who cares if it's not solving crime?
Yep. Yeah. In New York, it was the Combined Ballistic Identification System called COBIS, and it ran from 2002 to 2012 at approximately $4 million a year.
But
it solved approximately an average of 0 crimes a year for those 10.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Massachusetts gun registry and the gun registry in every state that I'm aware of. A few of them actually do have solved crimes to their to their name, but they're almost always were done after the fact to confirm information that they already knew.
Right. And that's one of the interesting things about the article, which I didn't read all of it. I read a good chunk of it, was that in the article, it mentions, where was that? I'm not going to scroll through the whole thing, but basically it was more or less what you said, was to not even confirm, but support the position they'd already reached in the prosecution.
Mhm.
And basically, well, yes, it came from this kind of gun, so it couldn't have come from any other gun. So we're not going to even test them.
And that was the big thing that got me is so I always assumed that when a gun was going through ballistic fingerprinting and that sort of stuff, is they would do stuff like count the number of lands in the bearing surface of the recovered bullet, measure the base diameter of the bullet so they can get an idea of what caliber it was, but count the number of lands, count the width of them, count the depth of them, and then compare
and
that
look for
with
any tool marks. Well.
And that would fit with standard manufacturing of the Smith & Wesson prefers six grooves while Sig Sauer likes 7, or this
or
company
Marlin with the micro groove rifling would be a standout. HK with the polyagonal will be a standout.
Correct. And so you would have certain aspects so that you could say, well, this was fired by an H&K 9mm, and a USP9 was recovered from the from the suspect, along with this information adds up to it. But it's actually far worse than that. To quote from the article, ballistics analysts will match a bullet to a gun, but they will not exclude a particular bullet from having been fired from a particular gun as a matter of policy. Just to be clear, their official policy is that they will utilize the alleged uniqueness of those microscopic marks to send somebody to prison, but not to exonerate somebody. So if you happen to carry a Glock that has polyagonal rifling, and somebody is shot with a 9mm bullet, and you are suspected of that, and the bullet they recover has cut groove rifling, they won't. The crime lab will come back as inconclusive,
right?
As opposed to, no, these don't match. These were not fired even from the same make of gun, let alone the same gun.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is in this article, it's not just limiting it to ballistic matches, but things like bite mark analysis and various tool impressions in wounds. Someone is stabbed. Oh, well, the knife that made this stab wound was this size and had these dimensions and characteristics. And the article is also calling that into question as well. Yeah. Because so many of the labs that are doing those kind of tests, it's either a match or it's inconclusive. They don't seem to ever come back, or rarely come back with, no, it's not a match.
Yeah. I mean, we could go down a deep rabbit hole, and we've got a bunch of other stuff to discuss. So I really didn't want to dive too deep in. I mean, if anybody else has got something to add, but I just always saw this as, how in the hell are these forensics labs putting through exact ballistic match? Like, not only are they matching, saying that this was fired from a Glock 19, but this was fired from your Glock 19, when that barrel is made entirely by CNC machining, or it's not like, the gun maker slipped a little bit and cut this groove slightly narrower. So there's five wide bands and one narrow band, and that's unique to that gun.
Right. And it says right in the article, the problem is that we don't really know if any of these claims about individual characteristics are actually true. We don't know if the lands in each gun barrel leave unique marks on bullets that can't be replicated by other guns. We don't know if a gun's firing pin and ejection mechanism leave unique marks on a casing. We don't know the frequency with which specific marks may appear among the entire population of fired bullets. We also don't know how to account for the likelihood that a gun will leave different sorts of marks on bullets over the course of its life as a functioning gun, as the ridges and grooves inside the barrel wear, an issue that would presumably affect older cold cases. Because we don't know any of this, we can't generate a margin for error for the marks on bullets and casings the way we can with... And it's like, that is chilling, because ballistic analysis is over 100 years old. I mean, it really, ballistic analysis, comparison analysis, as far as I understand, right around the turn of the last century. It mentions in the article that bite analysis is only from like been around since the 70s. But ballistic analysis for more than a century. Now, I think bite mark analysis probably has been around longer, but not recognized until the 70s.
And the most damning thing for me is the fact that these labs will not rule out a handgun from possibly having fired around, which, as the article states, if you're not willing to rule out a gun, well, by saying, yes, this came from this gun, you are de facto ruling out every other gun on the planet.
Right. Now, I also find interesting was Ian from Forgotten Weapons had been talking to an expert in this particular field who said that they could, in fact, tell without a doubt which bullet came from which gun. And I can't help but wonder, did the person that Ian spoke to know this, or had they bought into the hype and were also deceived?
Yeah, it is interesting, but again, it's I always thought that was strange. That again, when you have, the level of precision. When you think about like the Germans switching from the Luger to the Walther P38. One of the reasons for it was less expensive to make, but also it didn't require everything to be hand fit together.
That was a big part of the expense.
Yeah,
but in this article, one of the illustrations is 7 different primer impressions. So it's extreme close-up imagery of 7 cartridge cases that were all fired from the same gun, and even to the untrained eye, they are all very different. So,
and one must assume that they are also all shot in rapid succession, whether or not they utilize different like brands of ammo, which would also make a huge difference.
But even within the same brand, the primer cup hardness will vary. In a lot of Winchester primers, the primer cup hardness has to be between a certain range. They have a test. And what they do is they put a randomly selected primer in a fixture, and they will drop a steel ball bearing from different heights. Anything below a certain height and the primer cannot discharge because it's too light an impact. Anything above a certain height, the primer must discharge or it's not sensitive enough. So even in manufacturing, there's a range because we can't control the metallurgy and the chemistry that precisely. So, I also suspected, mostly from how it was handled, I will admit, how it was handled on television shows, that it was a little too easy to pat. And it was one of those, I don't know enough about this, but it doesn't seem to fit, but all these experts are saying it works. So what do I do here? And now they've come out with this article, which, Weer'd, it would be interesting if you could get this to Ian and get his impression.
Yeah, or I don't know. Yeah, we'll that's certainly something I'll look into.
Yeah. All right. I'll shut up.
So, next one. I think you put this one in, David?
I guess I'm not shutting up. But yeah, this is from our good friend Stephen Gutowski at The Reload.
Never heard of her.
Oh, weird. Go lie down. But this is in regards to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announcing his run for the Republican presidential nomination, and immediately called out former President Trump about his call, take the guns first, go through due process second, being unconstitutional. Which, yes, it definitely does violate due process as I understand it. But it's basically DeSantis is trying to, I guess, cement his bona fides as a pro-Second Amendment candidate and put Trump on the defensive for some of the comments that he's made. Because I remember there was the clip that was played of somebody at former President Trump's appearance about the bump stock ban, and Trump just brushing it off as not a big deal.
Well, that was his at St. Anselm's College in New Hampshire, and he brushed it. He brushed it off, but also he passed the buck on to the NRA, saying that
but
was
the NRA could advise all they want. He made the final decision.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is completely on his plate, no matter what he says. And DeSantis's comment about the take the guns first, due process later is, like I said, it's going to put former President Trump on the defensive from the get-go.
Yep. No, I think it's a very, very smart move, and it also points out the significance of the Second Amendment as a political issue, that they are getting so much out in front of this.
Yeah, and honestly, as I'm sure Erin has a considerably larger amount of information as a Florida resident, but the reporting is that DeSantis has been overall pretty good about pro-gun stuff.
On gun stuff, yes.
I'm just limiting it to gun stuff for this.
I have no complaints about how DeSantis is handling gun laws and gun rights here in Florida. Listen to what I'm not saying.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I yes, I will just say yes. But I think it's the 2024 election season is heating up already.
Which is good. Let's keep the heat on the Second Amendment. Again, I'm glad it's not being forgotten. We certainly have the Democrat side, unfortunately, is going through with their party line of being anti-gun, which again upsets me because I don't think that the Second Amendment should be a partisan issue. I don't
think you'll get any disagreement here.
Yeah, and so, but it seems that the upper echelon, the inner party, if you will, is absolutely anti-gun, and so therefore the people that are vying to become key players within the Democrat Party for the national nomination are pushing for gun control, and now we have the major players for the Democrat for the Republican nomination are pushing against gun control.
Right, and it's going to be interesting to me in another few election cycles is because, as we've discussed in the past, all of the new gun owners, and as Erin regularly points out, gun owners very often become gun voters.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the, as an employee in a gun shop and being part of that industry, I hear from people in all sorts of other states. The company I work for has stores in Illinois near Chicago, and the number of stories that came through the internal communiques about people coming into the stores and not even knowing what a FOID was, but wanting to buy a gun and being shocked that they couldn't just buy a gun because they'd been told they could get one easier than buying a book.
Mm-hmm.
And, people who worked in gun shops out in California or Washington State or Maryland rather. And, I already knew about New York. So all of these formerly, let's just say, undecided or on the fence, suddenly being slapped in the face with, oh no, you can't get a gun. There was an article I think we discussed in a previous roundtable about, was it Washington State? But it was people on the left being concerned because all of the right-wingers have guns and now we can't get them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see in the next few election cycles how or if that shifts things.
I mean, yeah, I want to say it was Oregon, either immediately after or in the lead up to Measure 114, but I'm not certain.
Yeah,
we covered it fairly recently, but my memory is full of holes right now.
Yeah, my memory these days has been like one of those things you drain pasta in.
I'm remembering
what it's called.
Washington, but of course their trajectory has been very, very similar in the last.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting going forward, and we may all get our wish that gun control becomes a less partisan issue. but
I hope so.
it's going to take some time.
I mean, that'll be nice, but the pessimist in me wonders, okay, what's the price for that?
Yeah.
And I've been hearing that that is going to be coming for a few years now, and it still hasn't happened.
Yeah, these types of changes
if
can
anything,
take a generation.
And if anything, the needle has moved further away.
I'm not sure about that at the grassroots level or the ground level. Definitely at the leadership level, yeah, the leadership level is completely doubled down on stupid. But I'm hearing a lot more from just run of the mill. I don't know if they're actually registered Democrats or Democrat leaning or liberal in some other way, but I'm hearing a lot more from them saying things like, "Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me anymore to do it that way." So it's going to take time. It might take a generation.
Well,
We didn't get here in a day.
yeah, I mean, we certainly didn't get here in a day, and it will take time. But time is marching, as this article from the Reload says, is that approval for Biden gun policy hits new low, down to 31%. And so,
That's significant.
That's very, very, very significant. I was just looking to see the methodologies of the poll, and oh boy, this is a dense little PDF that's linked in here. I'm not going to be able to glean the questions I got from there. I have to see if it's in the article. But
considering all the times we quote the Reload, specifically Stephen Gutowski, they should probably advertise on this podcast. We give them enough free press.
Yeah, just reach out to Stephen and say, hey, can you do like a 10, 15 second plug, and we'll just toss it in the show. Save us some trouble.
I mean, it's literally one of the greatest, because again, so many websites do what we do, which is we read the news and we talk about the news for you guys, and then leave links in the show notes.
Yeah. But we leave a lot more links, but he does the initial research.
Stephen is the news.
Yeah. So, well, no, he's better than the news, because if something goes out in Associated Press, all the other news sources just copy it and they don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Gutowski does the original research, and he questions and he looks and he digs into the numbers and he digs into the poll questions and methodology, which is why we tend to trust him.
But the approval's going down, and I don't know if there's anything more significant to say except for like this is good news, because for it to be this low, it means that these. I was just looking to see if they specifically were picking Biden supporters or Democrat voters, but it looks like it's just all adults.
But not only is the approval at an all-time low, disapproval hit an all-time high of 67%.
So that's also really good, because one issue that we have is just because you're not approving of it doesn't mean you care. Right.
But the fact that the disapproval is 2/3 of the people polled disapprove. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd have to take a look at the poll and the methodology and the questions. Do they disapprove of the president pushing gun control, or do they disapprove that he's not pushing hard enough or the right things?
Oh, that could be an interesting thing to look into. Like I said, I just clicked on the poll, and it's there,
a lot of numbers.
Yeah, it's there in the Reload, and by all means reach out and grab it and have a look.
Yep.
I don't know, but overall, again, my statement about the Second Amendment doesn't need to be partisan. You have these people saying, no, we can't just let the right wingers have the guns. We need to protect ourselves too. I mean, even things like the people that are that are in the Black Lives Matter camp, where they are not trusting of the police forces. If you don't trust the police forces, really good idea to have guns.
If you live in a bad neighborhood and you don't trust that law enforcement is going to show up to help in an emergency, probably a good idea to have some way to defend yourself and your family.
Correct. So it's good to see that that's dropping, and that also means that it's losing popularity within the Democrat Party, which is awesome.
Yes. And that, like I said, that gives me some tentative glimmerings of hope about the growing nonpartisan nature.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're getting down to the bottom here.
Yep.
Well, who was that? You, David, who put the Hawaii story up?
Yes, but if he's willing, I'd like to pass the baton, so to speak, to Oddball. I'm not sure if he's
where's the rim shot button?
because this is one of. There we go. But we'll
be here all week, folks.
Oddball's hot button issues in Tennessee law.
Right. So Hawaii, along with actually many states, not just Tennessee, has had a law banning folks from carrying, quote, cudgels, truncheons, police batons, collapsible batons, billy clubs, or nightsticks for with the intent to go armed. Apparently, Hawaii also goes a little bit further and also bans the ability to own such devices, which California also, it's illegal to own things like nunchucks.
New York, some of column A, some of column B.
Well, in most states, it's legal to at least own them, but not necessarily carry them.
Yeah. For a time, I don't know if this is actually the law or just the common understanding, but for a time in New York, ownership of nunchucks was believed to be illegal. I don't know the actual law.
And obviously I don't know the law of New York.
Don't bother.
Right. Of course, that always makes it interesting when you talk about, but they filmed certain martial arts movies in New York and California.
Yeah,
but they're a special class.
They get exemptions.
Anyway, so somebody decided to sue Hawaii over the fact that they were not allowed to carry such sticks. And let's see. And of course, I'm amused how the article says Hawaii agrees to drop the baton ban after losing court fight, when the article clearly states that the judge orders Hawaii to drop the baton ban. And it's especially in everywhere, quite frankly. The Second Amendment is not just guns, and if you're unable to carry a simple stick for the purposes of self-defense,
yep,
I have a hard time really saying that you have that you truly have a right to self-defense in the first place.
Yeah. Shall we address the origin of some of those anti-stick laws?
Well, I mean, and honestly, there's some of the anti-stick laws that were nefarious, and to stop minorities from having anything that would allow them to resist corrupt,
quote unquote proper authority.
Right, corrupt proper authority, or the white majority, etc. And honestly, there are some of the laws that when lined up and when they passed, it was in an attempt to help by giving the law some way to go after the lynch mobs, the Klan, etc. Along with anti-mask laws. So sometimes it was racist, sometimes they thought they were helping. But
I know that a number of the laws in the northern states, as I understand, I'm trying to remember from the paper I did many years ago, but in northern states, it was to prevent freed slaves.
Right.
Who would while this is pre-Civil War era. but preventing freed slaves from arming themselves for defense.
Right. And of course, I would like to see this happen in the state of Tennessee. If one, because quite frankly, and this is true in any state of the union, you go to a gun show or you go into a mall ninja shop or whatever, they will sell you. There will be somebody there selling a collapsible baton, and the dealer has no idea about the law, and the people buying it clearly have no idea about the law, and they'll carry it thinking that they're completely legally safe.
Excuse me.
And the other thing is, take the state of Tennessee, where if you are a resident of Tennessee and your nose is clean, you can carry a gun without a permit. You can carry a knife of any size, but you can't carry a baton.
A stick.
Yeah. How does that make sense?
Don't.
Yes. Law and sense do not necessarily overlap, but just if you can legally carry these more immediately deadly devices, I'll put it that way, because you can absolutely kill somebody with a stick.
Oh yeah.
Just takes some effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you can carry these more immediately lethal devices, shouldn't you be able to carry the less immediately lethal device?
You would think.
Again, you're trying to bring logic and common sense.
I know,
to
I'm
the
terrible
law.
about that.
Yeah. We all do it though.
I think that this transitions well to something Oddball that you popped in, which is it's a little time sensitive. So if you're a patron of the show, then then you've got time on this, and if you are in the Facebook group, you will have seen this for a little bit. But the KnifeRights group is doing is it an auction or a raffle?
So it's the type of raffle that you can do legally in 50 states. so
Which
what
is a whole other discussion.
Right. Including they have to do this for the state of Tennessee. You can so they're doing a fundraiser drive where you can buy X number of entries like a traditional raffle. But if you donate one, you automatically get a membership to KnifeRights.org, which, if you're unaware of the organization, they are an amazing organization that has been able to do a heck of a lot with a surprisingly low budget. They are responsible with widening, of getting rid of a lot of nasty knife laws in many states, including pretty much all the knife laws in the state of Tennessee, and they even successfully beat New York.
Twice, I believe, recent history.
Yeah. So one, there's that wonderful thing. And two, if you donate at the $100, $200, $400, and $500, and $500 levels, you also get a knife. And each level, it's a higher end knife as you go up the levels, and each knife is custom engraved with the KnifeRights logo and a slogan on each side of the blade.
But it's not a cult.
Correct. And David and I were just talking earlier that the knife that they're giving with a $100 donation is the SOG Terminus XRG-10, which is a wonderful little knife. I've gotten a couple of them from these raffles that they do pretty much every year. Great knives, and if you are looking for a beater knife, that would be a wonderful option. And on top of that, with every X number of dollars you donate, you also get a certain number of entries in a drawing that will win you all sorts of different prize packets. And some of these are high-end knives. Some of them are firearms. Some of them are a mixture of the two. And there's a couple suppressors in there. There's a sword.
I believe it's pronounced sword.
But yeah, and you can go to their website and click the link for the Ultimate Steel giveaway, I think. Ultimate Steel knives, guns, and more spectacular.
I'm just scrolling through some of the prize packages. Holy!
Yeah. There's an Adams Arms 308 with a suppressor and a high-end Crimson Trace scope with scope mount.
There's also a 338 Lapua Magnum AR with suppressor and optic.
Sig Sauer, there's a bunch from them. There's a Marlin 4570. And of course, there are some absolutely gorgeous knives.
I just reached the custom Paul Markow engraved Johnny Stout patron liner.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
now, unfortunately,
I would never carry that, but I would have it on.
Oh, yeah. Most of the knives are ones that I would never carry, but I would definitely have on my desk to stare at every day. Unfortunately, and even here's a Grilla Grills Kong ceramic commando grill is one of the prizes. So there's something in there for pretty much everybody. Unfortunately, as Weer'd stated, this event is ending on the 5th. I've seen them extend it in the past, but that's the deadline that they're giving right now. So if you're a patron and you're hearing this on Friday, you've got a couple days. If you are a regular listener and you're hearing it on Monday, run over to them and buy a few tickets. And if you're hearing it later, like I said, KnifeRights is an awesome organization. I think membership starts at like $20. And even if you're not a huge, $35. And even if you're not a huge knife person, these people have also been fighting for our Second Amendment rights in general, because they recognize that if they can get constitutional carry for firearms in a state, it's a heck of a lot easier to argue, well, that switchblade ban that you have on the books, doesn't that seem a bit silly?
Yep. Or in many places, the 3-inch blade length maximum.
Right. Yeah.
Or whatever length it is.
Right, and that changes from state to state and possibly municipality to municipality. In the city of Chicago, it's 2 inches.
Like I said, New York City versus New York State are different planets.
Right, and I think the president of KnifeRights is also a gun person, but he's also a knife person and saw that there were a lot of laws on the books that shouldn't be there. So he started this, and
he is absolutely. By the way, he is absolutely a gun person. When I actually met him in Chicago, when it was just Erin and I and Steve were all in for and Xander were in for the gun rights policy conference, and it happened to be I flew in on the same flight as Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League, Massachusetts. And so we had met up at the baggage exchange, and I'm just like, you're heading the same direction as I am, so let's team up. And so he was there, and he showed up. I forget the gentleman's name, but yeah, he was there. Jim introduced me to him, and we were talking about guns and knives and stuff the whole shuttle ride to the hotel. So yeah, no, can confirm.
Cool.
So shall we close out?
No, we shall not close out, because I added something, so I would have something to contribute to this frickin' round table.
I was going to say, close out with this book.
Nice save. I appreciate the effort. All right, so this one is going to seem a little bit out there, but I promise you this is related to firearms, and I'm offering this as a resource to people. So I have been, well, when I say reading the books, I mean listening to the audiobooks of a man known as John Ronson. Don't confuse him with Ron Johnson. That's a surf shop in Florida. And so John Ronson is an investigative sort of journalist, and I don't know if he was at the time he wrote this, but now currently he spends time between New York City and London. He is an Englishman, and so he's got that English quirky sense of humor. So he wrote a book called Them, Adventures with Extremists. I'm not entirely sure when he wrote it. The audiobook is copyright 2012. I'm currently not finding the date on it. It
says 2003, it looks like.
Okay, that sounds about right, because in my mind I was going, it feels like it was the 90s, but I'm getting off topic. I fit right in with all the squirrels here. So anyway, so this is going to sound weird, but it is important to state that in addition to being an Englishman, he is a Jew. And so this British Jew is embedding himself with extremists of different types. And the examples they give here in the Amazon listing are Islamic fundamentalists and neo-Nazis. He also embeds with the Ku Klux Klan. And he finds out what it's like to be an extremist and why they do what they do. Now, why do I bring this up? It's because chapter 2 of the book details the story of the Weaver family and the incident at Ruby Ridge. Now, when he started doing this, my butt immediately clenched, because I figured, okay, he's going to paint Randy Weaver as a complete nut job, because the title of the book is Adventures with Extremists. And as the chapter progressed, I was actually surprised and pleased by what happened. Now, Ronson never comes out and says Randy Weaver wasn't an extremist, but he never says Randy Weaver was definitely an extremist. And there are whole sorts of all more extreme extremists throughout this book. And by the time he has finished this particular chapter, it was clear to me that Ronson felt very strongly that the Weaver family was treated horribly, and that the ATF and the FBI completely overstepped their bounds and treated this family horribly. And so, if you ever need to discuss Ruby Ridge, and he also touches on Waco in this as well, if you ever need to discuss Ruby Ridge and Lon Horiuchi and the Weaver family with people who are a tough audience, just tell them to read this book, because as I mentioned before, he is British and he is Jewish. And those are two demographics who are pretty much anti-gun to begin with, and he overlaps.
Hey!
You know what I mean, David.
I have made many statements along those lines.
And so when you get someone who is pretty much predisposed towards thinking all gun owners are nuts, and he doesn't say that, and he paints a picture that the Weavers were treated horribly, and the entire thing was just a bungle from start to finish, I think that'll go a long way to convincing people. Because you're biased, but this guy is pretty much... You would expect that he would skew towards calling them nuts, and he doesn't. And so even if you don't read any of the other chapters in this book, I think that you will find chapter 2 to be very informative. He dug up details about Ruby Ridge that I didn't know about. And so it is interesting from a historical perspective, and also interesting from the perspective of, here's something that we can use to perhaps not sway people to our side, but it is very close to being, I don't even know if I could call it unbiased. It might even be biased towards the people we're trying to convince. And I think that it does a fine job in that regard.
I mean, that's absolutely awesome. And thank you for sharing that, Erin. And the link to it is in the show notes. So if you want to go grab all the information, I will just say that, I don't know if I could say that the Weaver family were not a bunch of extremists, because what they did is something that is very foreign to most of us, of going off the grid and living all the way. But as nutty or kooky or paranoid as you want to say the Weaver family was, the ATF and the FBI did send somebody to entrap them. And with essentially it was a biker, a member of the Hells Angels, I believe, or some biker gang.
One of the outlaw biker gang.
Yeah, there was an outlaw biker that was caught with drugs, and they gave him the option of the serve no time, but bring a shotgun up to Ruby Ridge and have Randy Weaver cut the barrel down below 18 inches, and then return it to us, and we'll let you go. And so, because Randy Weaver made money working as a gunsmith, and so he went in and had Randy Weaver do an alleged illegal gunsmithing job. I say alleged because one of the interesting things is, we know what make and model gun Jack Kennedy was shot with. We know what make and model gun William McKinley was shot with. We know what make and model gun Martin Luther King was shot with. We know all of these information about all of these guns. I do not know the make, model, and have definitely not seen a photograph of the shotgun that Randy Weaver allegedly cut down. And I cannot tell you the length to which he cut it down. Was it 17?
The story was also reported that the biker met with Randy several times and kept pressuring him because Randy refused.
Do you know why they were trying to entrap Randy Weaver?
I've heard theories. I don't know which one of them is the truth.
Well, they wanted to entrap him so that they could then flip him, because there was an active, I don't know if you could call it a community, a cell, or whatever, but the Aryan Nation, or neo-Nazis or white supremacists, there is a vague difference. I'm not entirely sure, nor do I really care, but they were very prevalent in that section of the state. And while he didn't exhibit any neo-Nazi tendencies, so the short version here is that it seems to be that it was his wife who really wanted to get off the grid. And Randy went along with it because happy wife, happy life. But he got bored, and so he would frequently go into town. And no, he wouldn't cheat on her, but he would like to go into town and get a drink. And he ended up getting a drink in a place that the neo-Nazis frequented. And because he was a white man, I don't really want to say they left him alone. Anyway, the point being was, he was on nodding terms with them. And so someone decided that he was the guy to flip so that he could be their mole into this particular subculture. And so they flipped a guy to flip a guy.
Right.
And so when the ATF and so when the ATF showed up on his doorstep and threatened him with, "You're either going to go to jail or you're going to work for us," he laughed at them and said, "Get off my lawn." And as we all know, the government hates it when you laugh at them.
Yep. Now, I'm also looking at some of the more information about the book Them, Adventures with Extremists by John Ronson. And man, this guy must clank when he walks. But most important thing is all of these different groups. At least he never unmasked the World Zionist conspiracy.
Well, you're making a joke.
Yes, I am.
But that was actually a running thread because a lot of people talked about, it was unclear whether it was the Jews or the Reptilians or the Bilderberg group, but pretty much all of these extremists had the belief that there was a shadowy cabal that was manipulating the world.
Yeah, but only one of them has a space laser. Damn it, it's a secret space laser. Just gave it away.
I was going to make that joke.
I have to make jokes about this kind of thing because I have been accused of being one of them.
And so I thought it was a really good book. It's equal parts entertaining and, eye-rolling, I guess I would say. The funniest part is the one at the very end where he meets up with Alex Jones and they try to infiltrate the Bohemian Grove hijinks. If you don't know what Bohemian Grove is,
I do not.
It's a secret ceremony that's held in like the Redwood Forest in a part of California where apparently the next world leaders are picked, and there's supposedly all sorts of occult rituals and so on and so forth.
So this is something we could probably get more information from Oddball. He knows about cults.
Yeah.
And so just hearing how Alex Jones plans to infiltrate this meeting is funny, and then how Ronson gets in. Just watch the whole. That particular chapter is sort of like what I feel James Bond would be if James Bond was Woody Allen.
Which
But
in the 1964 Casino Royale, he is.
I was going to say that happened.
So yeah, I'm wildly off topic now. I found the book very interesting and entertaining. You may love it, you may hate it, but for nothing else, read chapter 2 and keep that in your quiver the next time someone starts talking about, Ruby Ridge or Waco or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And I will interject one piece of fact is I do believe the Weaver family did trade with the outlaw bikers, the neo-Nazis, and possibly members of the Klan. I'm trying to remember which groups, but it is been the overall statement of the surviving members of the Weaver family that they were not supportive of those views, and they didn't hold any of these any racial hatred towards anybody. But those people were anti-government and paranoid, and therefore were big on prepping and had prepping supplies, and were good at being off the grid and taking cash payments, etc. And so those were the people that they would use as part of their supply chain to keep Ruby Ridge independent and going on. And very similar to, again, my big tent statement on, the Second Amendment. You can go shooting with someone who is a Christian conservative can go and shoot with a secular humanist communist. And guess what?
I'm sorry. What? Secular humanist communist?
Yeah.
Not even sure where what the Venn diagram of that looks like.
Yeah, but what I am saying is that the person who you could go shoot with someone who's the exact polar opposite, and you're on the range and you're shooting and you're having a good time, and you can be friends, and you don't need to agree on everything. I think that's overall my take on the statement of the Weavers' connection with the racist groups, was that these were people that they had some common views.
Live and let live.
Exactly. And they were able to so, but either way, as I could say, what the Weaver family did was not something that any of us have done or are contemplating doing, at least in a very, very serious fashion. So that could constitute them to be extremists, but also at the same time, you can call them paranoid all you want, but the government did come and kill all of them.
Well, it didn't kill all of them.
It's true.
No, killed the dog, the son, and the mom. while she was holding a baby.
Correct. And so
Possibly a deadly assault baby.
It is hard to talk a lot of smack about the Weaver family when that was how their saga came to an end.
Yeah.
Well,
Ronson interviews the older daughter, not the one who was being carried. There was an older daughter that I didn't know about, and also Randy himself. And there's a lot of pain and a lot of trauma associated with that. But just read it. It's good. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, read it or listen to it. Got a
All right.
variety of options.
And now it comes to the part where we thank each and every one of our listeners. So very special thanks to all of our listeners, but a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. So you go to Patreon, go to patreon.com, so Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump. And I will say, I just got somebody reached out to me from our Patreon group and mentioned that they actually listen to the ACP film tracks while driving. If they see it, it's a movie that they've seen multiple times, so they know they're not going to be any spoilers. They just listen to it just to hear the shenanigans.
I'm not sure whether to be proud of us or sad for them.
I will have to say, while editing the ACP film tracks, I have accidentally hit the truncate silence button and brought it down to just us talking, and they shortened considerably.
Yeah, except Lamageddon because of all the laughter.
Oh my god!
I'm wondering if we should do that again.
Lamageddon is worth the price of admission.
It is.
Yeah.
Erin's part.
I wasn't sure because y'all had gotten way off topic.
Again.
All right. As I try to get us out of the weeds and back onto the road, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I get a blog. It's weirdworlds.com. You can hear me on Handgun Radio, Firearms, and Oddball. Where can people find you?
You can find me on, of course, the Assorted Calibers podcast Facebook page and at gunscarstech.com. And yeah, I'm fairly often drug in with a couple chuckleheads for Handgun Radio.
It's the most recent one. You just come in.
So,
you're well welcome.
Not even mentioning the blog anymore, huh?
I said gunscarstech.com.
All right. I didn't hear it, but that doesn't mean anything. I thought you were just finally admitting that it's like, I'm never going to write there again.
Well, obviously, I'm here regularly. Also, occasionally wander confusedly into the Handgun Radio podcast. I was on Geeks, Gadgets, and Gun once, and after that experience, I don't know if they want me back, because Oddball and I kind of took over their podcast.
Yeah.
It was a good show.
We had fun. I also am a contributor at Blue Collar Prepping, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. And I'm a published author under the names Brenna Bach, BRENA and David Bach. And for anyone who's going to be at LibertyCon, I will be there as well, and I'll be in Author's Alley a couple of times, so come by, say hi, buy my books.
I'm also going to be at LibertyCon, and I'm going to be on a panel for prepping.
Yeah, I guess
Nice.
I should actually finally order that podcast mic, and maybe we can do something on site.
Ooh.
And Erin, where can people find you?
Oh, you know, the usual places.
Hither and yon, flittering around like a butterfly.
Which would be linktree/Erin Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Erin Paulette, all one word.
And of course, you are listening to a very long version of Spencer's music for our podcast.
Oh, man, we really need caffeine or Adderall or something.
What you need is a dungeon master to ride herd on you, and it's like, no, Mom is talking now. Here's the topic. Okay, good. Now on to the next topic.
Wait, what you could always do, Erin, when we're getting a little too far afield or a little too far into the weeds or whatever, is wait as long as you can and then to get our attention.
Believe me, I'm tempted, but one, I don't want to seem like an utter bossy bitch, and two, I don't want to generate more work for Weer'd Beard.
Well, on the one, I think you should embrace if it'll make the podcast run smoother. And two, do we really care about how much work we make for Weer'd? He likes the abuse.
He's so good. All right.
Well,
Aaron,
you got me sold.
makes
Oh, God damn it! I'm helping. I'm at that point where I'm in two memes simultaneously. I'm helping. I'm in danger.
I need to use the bathroom. Aaron, do some magic.
Weer'd, whatever you do, don't think of Niagara Falls. All that water rushing down, rushing. Just the tremendous weight of it all, the pressure of the water. Just don't think about that, because then you'll start thinking about the tremendous weight and pressure of water in your bladder, and you might make a mess. So, Weer'd has wet himself, but I haven't. Our hygiene is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.